The falling dollar and China's foreign exchange reserves stiffen capital controls help. The weak dollar, China's complex web of capital controls, and its efforts to crack down on its huge and over-leveraged conglomerates to invest overseas are having an impact. China's foreign exchange reserves, the largest such pile of foreign currency-denominated securities in the world, rose by $21 billion in December, to finish the year at $3.14 trillion, according to the People's Bank of China today. It was the highest level since September 2016, and the 11th month in a row of gains since the panic moment in January 2017, when reserves had fallen below $3 trillion. Clearly, at $3 trillion, authorities' true line chart via Trading Economics, over the 12-month period, foreign exchange reserves rose by 4.6%, or $129 billion, the first annual increase since 2014, which was the year when forex reserves peaked at nearly $4 trillion, before starting into a downward spiral as Chinese individuals and companies were trying to get their money out of the country, as the yuan was sinking against the dollar, and, as a little while later, Chinese stocks crashed from astonishing bubble highs, with astonishing speed. In 2017, as authorities were trying to stem capital outflows, the yuan, which is pegged against the dollar, also rose for 11 months in a row against the dollar. Seen another way, the dollar fell against the yuan in 2017, but it also fell against other currencies. 2017, based on the broad trade-weighted dollar index, was the worst year for the dollar since 2003. It currently takes 6.49 yuan to buy a dollar. A year ago it took about 6.97 yuan. The falling dollar has reduced the heat from under Chinese individuals and companies trying to get their money out, which might have helped slowing the outflows. But how much, if any, of the 4.6% increase in the foreign exchange reserves last year is due to actual increases in foreign exchange instruments, and not just due to the decline in the dollar? Authorities have already admitted that at least some of the rise of the reserves last year is due to the decline in the dollar against other currencies. The values of non-dollar currencies in the reserves are translated into US dollars. So a decline of the dollar against those currencies would increase the dollar level of those non-dollar holdings. For example, the euro soared 14.5% against the dollar in 2017, the Canadian dollar rose 7%, and the Japanese yen nearly 4%. Even if the level in China's reserves of those currencies has not changed in absolute terms, it would have risen sharply, because the dollar, into which they retranslated for publication purposes, has tumbled. So the rise of China's foreign exchange reserves is a mixed bag, perhaps an indicator of the effectiveness of the capital controls, and certainly an indicator of the tumbling dollar. And for now, China does not appear to be relenting in its controls to stem capital outflows. On the contrary, in December, for example, the State Administration of Foreign Exchange announced that individuals are allowed to withdraw a maximum of 100,000 yuan, $15,400, a year from their Chinese bank accounts while overseas, in total, spread over however many separate bank accounts or ATM cards they may have. Until then, they could withdraw 100,000 yuan per card. So if they had multiple cards and accounts with several banks, they could convert a lot of yuan into USD, while overseas. This no longer works. In the same vein, earlier in 2017, the National Development and Reform Commission China's Economic Planning Agency has increased its scrutiny of outbound acquisitions by private Chinese firms and has brought their overseas subsidiaries under its oversight. Today, the State Administration of Foreign Exchange said as part of its announcement, reported by the South China Morning Post, that it would keep foreign exchange reserves and international balance of payments balanced and stable in 2018. SAFE cited the decline of the dollar against other currencies in December as one of the reasons for the increase in the dollar value of China's forex reserves, and this dollar value of the non-dollar portion of its forex reserves is an accounting entry, more dependent on the value of the dollar than anything else. Universal basic income insanity or rational? Question: what is your opinion of Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg idea of universal income? Answer: the idea of free money being touted by Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg only demonstrates that they know nothing about humanity or economics. They see universal free money as a cushion for workers whose jobs might be replaced by automation or robots. They argue that free money could provide workers with the flexibility to retrain for a new career, pursue creative interests, or start their own business. If we are talking about a temporary benefit during a retraining period, then that is an entirely different idea from a universal basic income guarantee. You can drive down the streets in New Jersey, and you see handmade signs posted that they pay cash for diabetes medical material handed out free by the government. They also sell food stamps. You cannot change humanity. Some people will obey the rules and others will circumvent them. The last thing you want to do in society is provide to the population some sort of guaranteed income, where people can stay home and do nothing. This will foster the same hatred of anyone who works and has more than they do, and it will promote hatred and class warfare. When the automobile was invented, that displaced people who were carpenters making wagons. When the Dust Bowl hit during the Great Depression, it added to the displacement of farmers. The tractors replaced people tilling the soil just as the cotton gin replaced slave labor in the South. Technology will always replace workers, and the greater the tax burden, the greater the incentive to replace workers. Neither Elon Musk nor Mark Zuckerberg has any clue about economic history, for if they did, they would understand that technology always advances and displaces segments of the workforce. This is also one reason governments like to thin the herd when unemployment rises. Providing free money is actually an experiment in Finland. It began 1 year ago, taking 2,000 unemployed Finns who were randomly selected from across the country for a trial testing universal basic income. Each month for 2 years they would receive €560 from the government, tax-free. They can spend the money however they decide. The plus of this program is the reduction in bureaucracy. As I said, the U.S. government hands out food stamps but people sell them. From an economic standpoint, the system is less costly than the current one in play, with bureaucrats determining what they will allow people to have or not. The full report on the Finland experiment will not be issued until the 2-year program is complete after January 1, 2019. Original article. Read more by Marketslat editor. Of capital controls and its efforts to crack down on its huge and over-leveraged conglomerates to invest overseas are having an impact. China's foreign exchange reserves, the largest such pile of foreign currency-denominated securities in the world, rose by $21 billion in December, to finish the year at $3.14 trillion. Chart via Trading Economics. Over the 12-month period, foreign exchange reserves rose by 4.6%, or $129 billion, the first annual increase since 2014, which was the year when forex reserves peaked at nearly $4 trillion, before starting into a downward spiral as Chinese and Indian dollars, according to the People's Bank of China today. It was the highest level since September 2016, and the 11th month in a row of gains since the panic moment in January 2017, when reserves had fallen below $3 trillion. Clearly, at $3 trillion, authorities, true line, individuals, and companies were trying to get their money out of the country, as the yuan was sinking against the dollar, and, as a little while later, Chinese stocks crashed from astonishing bubble highs, with astonishing speed. In 2017, as authorities were trying to stem capital outflows, the yuan, which is pegged against
Audio Jungle.
the falling dollar and China's foreign exchange reserves stiffen capital controls help. The weak dollar, China's complex web